On May the 16th, I withdrew 7 amendments and hope that some would be unnecessary today. I want to thank you, Chairman, and also Chairman Allen, for working with me to realize that some of these projects within the Easter River communities have been already funded between May the 16th and today. The first funded project is to fund renovations to the field at Johnson Middle School. This is the middle school in Ward 8 who have won over 6 state championships, but our kids are forced to practice outside without any lights due to in the back, and I've got reports from staff and the principal about at least 3 shootings while students were outside practicing. I'm happy that we were able to work together to secure $1.5 million for this project. So I'm withdrawing that amendment. The second fully funded project is the modernization of Eastern Senior High School, which our turkey bowl displayed. To your point just now, Chairman, that has also been fully funded. The third was the Marvin Gaye Recreation Center in Ward 7, which was funded. The 4 remaining amendments that I proposed are for only Ward 8 projects. The first is the creation of a state-of-the-art sports complex at Fort Grabble. This is a significant need for a facility that can do multiple things at this park. As noted during our many discussions, Fort Grabble has a field house there that can fit 15 people in there comfortably. It's beyond its use. It is not currently operated or used at the moment because we have not invested into that recreation center. The mayor allocated $4 million for Fort Grabble, which is a much smaller renovation to clean up to restore the basketball court and the water park that's there. I'm asking my colleagues to support our moving of $9.8 million from the Department of Department of Transportation to Department of Recreation to build out a space that reflects the capacity for our youth that should be provide a space that they can play and operate, and not just for youth, but for all families to have fun and recreation activities there. And what I also listed, and which we're sending to Councilmember Vincent Gray, which was a discrepancy in the last budget conversation, was where the funding was coming from. We are emailing this to Councilmember Gray, who's visiting virtually, but I'll pass this down for those members to see exactly these funding sources, which total $155 million, which are all Ward 8 projects. And please note, we have not moved the total amount of $155 million, but there was a discrepancy about where these funds came from. And I wanted to, just for clarity, show members exactly the line item in which these budget items came from. Which are all Ward 8 projects. The third amendment I'm proposing today is a new recreation center at Bard High School. Ask for more time, Chairman.
Without objection.
Bard High School, which is one of the most under-resourced portions of Ward 8. At the council, we often talk about a conversation around equity, and I believe that the budget is a more documented where we should put our money, where our heart is and where our priorities are. And in getting the budget from the mayor, that has been a challenge for all council members to try to figure out where we put money. But this is an opportunity for those members on the council to not just talk about equity, but put our money into areas that need it the most. I have spoken to the principal of Bard High School, DPR, and DGS in relations to this project. My amendment moves $30 million from DDOT to DPR. The intent is to create a similar center to what is planned at Congress Park, which that cost has been $36 million. We came up with $30 million for this project because we haven't included a field or playground and water park that the Congress Heights site has. We have added a subtitle concerning Good Hope Road, which would be named Marionberry Avenue in honor of the Mayor for Life, Marionberry. Good Hope Road is in need of serious repair and modernization to be safe and clean. I'm requesting that we move $10 million already allocated to improve Ward 8 streets and direct those dollars to specifically improve what we named the Marionberry Avenue project. This completes my amendments for today, Chairman.
Councilmember White, I'm a little bit confused. You mentioned Fort Greble.
Yep.
You mentioned Fort Greble, you mentioned Bard, and you mentioned what will be renamed Marionberry Avenue.
Yep.
On last week, I believe on Friday, on May 24th, you circulated 6 amendments. Fort Greble, Bard were the only 2, were of the 3 you just mentioned, only those 2 are on what you circulated last week. Today at noon, you circulated, I assume, a revised Fort Greble. Marionberry is not in writing as far as I know.
What do you mean by Marionberry?
The improvements to
Okay.
Marionberry.
So we sent that out. Let me get the exact language on that. We added a subtitle concerning Good Hope Road as one of our main streets because the money was already in the budget.
All right, the BSA is not before us, so there are no subtitles before us today.
Point of clarity, Chairman.
Sure.
I do note that you added money for Anacostia High School, which we worked to get it to $825,000, but I do want to note that DGS gave us a response that it's going to take $7.5 million to fully renovate Anacostia's auditorium, which looks like something from 1912. And I added an amendment for that today as well, Chairman.
All right, I was going to ask if you were moving them in block, but it might be better if we take them one at a time. So, if that's okay with you, which is your first amendment?
My first amendment will go with Bard, a recreation center at Bard.
Mr. Chairman, that's amendment number 5.
So that would be, I believe, creating a new capital project called Bard, Malcolm X Recreation Center at Bard High School. And you're proposing 30 million, and the 30 million will come from a cut to streetscapes and beautification of 28,793,000, and a cut to Shepherd Branch Trail rehabilitation of 1.2 million. Is that correct?
Yes, Chairman. And I do want to note there has been feedback from DDOT about construction on Willow Road. And I do have some exhibits which I want to pass out. It's also be emailed to Councilmember Gray about the construction that's already happened on Ritter Road that's substantial in front of Kip Middle School. And if you look at Exhibit 1, which I'll be passing out, you will see what it was. And in my opinion, in the community's opinion, and Chairman, you visited our budget discussions in Ward 8, that what our priorities are as it relates to more activities and wraparound services of youth and young adults to get out the streets and get into something constructive where they can get some positive activities. And the reason being, over 9 recreation centers in Ward 8 has been closed down, including the formerly known Malcolm X Recreation Center. And that's in a community that we've had over 26 shootings in the last 36 months.
I did not include this in the budget for several, in the amendment nature of a substitute. I did not include this for several reasons. First of all, the reduction of $28 million from Wheeler Road. I'm not comfortable with a reduction of that magnitude without better understanding where the executive is or what the implications are. Second, I believe the Department of Public Works, or the Department of Parks and Recreation reached out to my office 2 weeks ago and said that they were not in support of this, and that they noted that there were 2 recreation centers about 0.6 of a mile in either direction from this. Third, I have concern about what the impact would be on Bard, which is a school that we put a lot of investment into, and it's not clear to me whether this is removing their field or what the impact would be on their athletic activities. If there'd been more time and this had been further developed, I would better understand why the executive's arguments against this are well-founded or not, and what the impacts are on Bard as well as Wheeler Road, as well as on the Department of Parks and Recreation. So that's why I did not include this in the amendment nature of a substitute.
Thank you for that, Chairman. I do want to note that I have spoken to Principal Branch, who's the principal of Bard, and he is in favor of this recreation center. Actually, we got a note from the basketball coach early on during the season. Bard won the DCIAA state championship this year, and the current high school was an old middle school, so they have to practice in what is now a former cafeteria, which is too small for high school students. So we came up with a solution from the community and the school to form a new recreation center that can fit both of the needs. And so, as you know, Chairman, a lot of things that we propose as council members, the executive is not in favor of. So I don't want to act like that's something new. And I don't remember much that they've supported that we proposed on this council. So that's not used that as an argument. Secondly, the argument is that this proposed recreation center is in close proximity to another recreation center that's being done. That is true, but we also know that there's been several rivaling beefs between these two communities. In fact, Nia Courtney, the young 6-year-old girl who was shot along with her mother and 4 other people, was a result of this neighborhood beef. And there were over 32 people shot in the last 4 years. And so I don't feel comfortable if I was in that community sending my child or my kids to a community that has issues, and I don't think you would. And so sometimes government don't understand community dynamics, and so we think that just because it's right down the street, that it's a recreation center that our children can go to. And while it should not be the case, the reality is this is a reality for most of the areas in Ward 8 that are feuding every day, and it's our hope that we can counter that with utilizing government resources to build safe spaces in our community, regardless of how close they are in proximity, because there's really 4 different communities that, because Ward 8 is not that big, that these communities are touching. I do want to note, Chairman, I just passed out, and Councilmember Gray, you can comment if you've gotten these pictures of the streetscape on Willow Road. What I passed out first was before they did the major renovations, and what you see was I got my staff to go take a picture of the construction projects about 35 minutes ago of what it looks like now, and this project is complete. And so DDOT's still saying they need $20 million to do this project, because the project that I've seen in diagram is this project right here, and you can see from these pictures that was taken by Kevin Coleman on my staff less than an hour ago, the completed project on Willow Road.
Well, I don't want to be in too much of a back and forth here. I explained to you why I didn't include it in the amendment nature of a substitute. I'm not aware that there's been a hearing on this. I don't know what the impact is on Bard. I know the Department of Parks and Recreation says we don't need another recreation center. I don't know what the impact is of the hit of $30 million or $28 million. And I think that.
Chairman, do you have
we
in
need-
writing where the Department of Recreation said they don't need another recreation center? That's the first I ever heard that not chair the committee.
I don't have the email in front of me.
Who said that?
I received an email from the Department of Parks and Recreation that indicate, I believe it was from the Department of Parks and Recreation. It was from the executive, I think that was the agency, that said that it was not necessary. Now, what's missing is that there has not been a full discussion of this. There's not been a public discussion, there's not been a hearing. I don't think this even went through the Committee on Recreation and Youth Affairs and Libraries. This is coming up, I know you circulated it 2 weeks ago, but other than that, there's been like no discussion of it. Let me recognize somebody else, Councilmember Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks to my Ward 8 colleague. As a fellow Ward council member, I certainly understand my Ward colleague working to try to deliver on projects to his community and to his ward. I am not going to speak to the utility of the proposed projects and the impact that they can make. I do, however, feel like as chair of the Committee on Transportation and the Environment that I need to speak about where the money is coming from and the sources. As I guess was mentioned earlier, it's a little confusing trying to track each amendment, but if I understand which one we're on right now, it would take significant funds from several roadway safety improvement projects in Ward 8, as well as 2 trail projects. We might have read from Brenda Richardson and others recently that talked about killing off those 2 trail projects in Ward 8, one of which is along Suitland Parkway, where DDOT's work is trying to make the trail safer along the adjacent highway, and the other, the Shepherd Branch Trail, where groups like Ward 8 Woods has spent considerable time and effort working to make those trails opportunities for residents. But I think what's more concerning for me are the cuts to the roadway safety projects. The totality of these amendments would essentially wipe out the road safety projects for Alabama Avenue and Wheeler Road. DDOT has identified these as 2 of the 15 most dangerous stretches of roadway in the district. The section of Wheeler Road that DDOT has identified for improvements is the most dangerous section of roadway in the District of Columbia. A driver hit a child leaving school in the section of Alabama Avenue about a week ago. Each year, about half the deaths in the district roads occur in Wards 7 and 8, because for years we built dangerous roads in Ward 7 and 8. Our own DC auditor found that Ward 8 is the deadliest ward for pedestrians and cyclists, with 41 deaths between 2017 and 2021. I did check in with the DDOT director about Wheeler Road, and while I appreciate the photos here, what I was told by DDOT is that the funding that's in the budget is for the entire road streetscape for this section that is, again, on the high-intensity crash network corridor, and that the images that we may be seeing here are about the tactical improvements that they made most recently, not what they are actually projecting to do for a total streetscape safety project. So for those reasons, I certainly applaud where my colleague is trying to put resources, but I can't support where they are coming from. And so I don't support them and would encourage my colleagues not to at this time.
Councilmember Allen, did you say that it's also for Alabama Avenue?
That is my understanding, if I have followed these amendments correctly.
Thank you. Yes, I understand, Councilmember Bonds, but the executive has indicated that the project is both Wheeler and Alabama.
I hear you, since you call my name, thank you, Chairman. I want to speak to this, and I want to speak to this because it just seems to me that we're in a quandary here on the council, and we're operating based on hearsay. And I would like to propose that we take a brief recess, enough time for the agencies that have provided oral responses on these matters to provide us something in writing. I think it's very disheartening to be in a situation where you believe that you are representing your constituency and the agencies are indicating perhaps you're not. I understand the position that we're in. We like to operate based on documentation, and we just don't have the necessary documentation. What we have before us is a budget that says, okay, it says for FY25 for Wheeler Road, it would be 20 million. but for FY '24, zero. For FY '26, zero. I'm just going by the numbers. You can tell me whether or not the numbers matter, but that's what I'm looking at, and that's what Councilmember White has passed out. So I'm very confused and simply asking that we approach this in a very deliberate manner. It's going to take us time, but we need to put in the time because obviously we don't have all of the details and we don't have it all in writing.
Chairman,
Councilmember Bonds, are you moving to recess?
Yes,
A motion to recess for how long?
15 minutes.
Chairman,
Councilmember White?
yeah, Chairman, I thank Councilmember Bonds and her empathy for the needs and what we're trying to accomplish. We have done our due diligence. We have spoken to the agencies, the principals, the executive about where we are, and we know it's on this council that most of the things we're proposing in the budget right now, the executive not going to agree with. So for the chairman, for you to use that as an argument is disingenuous. I have a letter here from Department of Parks and Recs, Ms. Danielle Evanu, who's the legislative affair analyst, and it reads, "Good morning, Kyle. We know you are busy with the first reading of the LBA later today, and this was last week. I want to follow up to convey DPR's appreciation for Councilmember White's support for expanding recreation opportunities and our understanding of the high demand for recreation facilities in Ward 8, especially in Congress Heights. We look forward to our continued work to provide residents with recreation programs and services with the power to improve their health and well-being and transform young people's lives. Please do not hesitate to reach out should you need anything else from DPR during the budget development process." And so to say we haven't had any discussion or conversation with them or they're against expanding recreation centers in DC is disingenuous, Chairman. Thank you.
I was just told by staff a motion to recess is not debatable. So there's a motion before us to recess for 15 minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Roll call.
A roll call on the motion to recess. Madam Secretary, would you call the roll?
Councilmember Fruman?
No.
Councilmember Fruman votes no. Councilmember Gray?
No.
Councilmember Gray votes no. Councilmember Henderson?
No.
Councilmember Henderson votes no. Councilmember Lewis George?
No.
Councilmember Lewis George votes no. Councilmember McDuffie?
No.
Councilmember McDuffie votes no. Chairman Mendelson?
No.
Chairman Mendelson votes no. Councilmember Nadeau?
No.
Councilmember Nadeau votes no. Councilmember Parker?
No.
Councilmember Parker votes no. Councilmember Pinto?
Yes.
Councilmember Pinto votes yes. Councilmember Robert White?
No.
Councilmember Robert White votes no. Councilmember Trayon White?
No.
Councilmember Trayon White votes no. Councilmember Allen?
No.
Councilmember Allen votes no. And Councilmember Bonds?
Yes,
Councilmember Bonds votes yes. Mr. Chairman, there are 2 yeses and 11 noes.
The motion fails. Further on the amendment, Councilmember Parker?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to applaud Councilmember White for moving these various amendments that I see as an effort to address concerns of residents. I do have some questions that I would appreciate responses to. So as a member of the Transportation and Environment Committee, I also reached out to Director Lott regarding these amendments, and in this one in particular, and it is my understanding that, well, 2 things. One, the streetscapes budget is a citywide line item, and the Wheeler Road project is estimated at $20 million. And so if I'm looking here at the amendment, there's approximately almost $29 million being proposed coming from the streetscapes budget, which I think there is a compelling argument to be made, both in terms of street safety, and we need to improve safety in Ward 8 where we see the highest numbers of deaths, but also an understanding of a ward council member advocating on his ward. So I guess the question I have first is, and Chairman, I'll ask this through you, but Councilmember White, can you articulate or justify how you came up with the $28.8 million figure? And then two, how you might justify pulling that from citywide funds, which would then be coming from other ward projects beyond the Wheeler Road allotment?
Chairman?
Yes, please.
Yes, thank you. As explained, we made our calculations based on current projects we've seen across the city. As noted, I spoke about a recreation center that's being built that costs $36 million. But this recreation center would be similar to that, except removing the field and the water park, and that has been priced out to almost $6 million. The second question was in reference to this affecting the citywide budget. For those who have not seen, I actually clarified that with a chart that I passed out. I don't know if you got it or not, but the chart outlines the exact projects totaling $155 million, all Ward 8 projects. If you look at those projects, it's listed in that chart that was passed out. And it clarifies that all those projects are in Ward 8.
Got it. Thank you, Councilmember White and Chairman. Two things I would just note quickly. One, I'm not clear whether or not all of these projects fall under the Streetscapes project,
No, sir.
although I'm seeing Alabama and Wheeler, they both do. The other thing I would just flag is that Director Lott did suggest that removing this money would kill the improvements and rehabs on Wheeler Road and Alabama. And he, as Councilmember Allen suggested, relayed that the project is still underway. And so I do appreciate the pictures, and I appreciate Councilmember Bonds trying to get clarity, because what I'm hearing from the director is not what is being suggested from our colleague here. So just passing that on and wanted to ask those questions for clarification. Thank you.
Can I answer
Thank
that,
you.
Chairman?
No.
Why
You'll get
not?
another chance to speak. Councilmember McDuffie?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to just really say how much I appreciate the spirit in which these amendments are being moved by Councilmember Trayon White, and the rationale that he provided in support of the amendments. As a committee chair myself, I also want to recognize the comments of Councilmember Allen with respect to the transportation budget. I do find that this amendment, and I suspect others that Councilmember Trayon White offers, at least I'll speak for myself, puts me at a bit of a crossroads, because while I understand the need to make sure that we maintain really substantial transportation budgets to do the necessary streetscape improvements in Ward 8, given the challenges that exist there with respect to violence on our roads, I don't like the feeling of that priority being pitted against one that would bring a sorely needed recreation center to a part of the community that needs it, for all the reasons that Councilmember White mentioned, namely the really tragic and unacceptable level of violence that exists in the neighborhood. I have also been on this dais many years and have heard that there are recreation centers close to two communities, so why can't kids or whomever would like to use it just walk the half a mile or the 0.6 of a mile? But I also understand full well the challenges that our young folks face when they have to make a decision on whether or not it's safe to do so. What I would like to support this amendment today. What I think is accurate is that the money wouldn't hit until fiscal year 2025, and that amount seems more likely to be for planning. If that is the case, then it gives us some time to really spend on identifying sources to fund this priority that the Ward 8 council member has named. I think it creates some time for this council to work with the executive and all the agencies, DDOT, DPR, DGS, to perhaps identify a better source of funds to be able to get this project done. So I'm not offering anything other than maybe an opportunity to use time that is on our side between now and the start of fiscal year 2025, which was more than a year out for this project. So maybe there's some room for compromise between Councilmember White and Chairman Mendelson, given that there's an entire another budget that would have to be sent to this council between now and then to work out where the sources can come from and how you address this serious priority that Councilmember Trayon White has laid out.
Thank you, Councilmember. Further discussion? Councilmember Pinto.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am worried about any time we're talking about cutting funding from our streetscape projects. But when we talk about violence, I think it's very important that we take seriously what our Ward 8 colleague is referring to, not just violence in our roads, but violence and challenges that our communities and our young people are facing. And if our Ward 8 council member is saying in the community where he's representing needs to support building these recreation spaces to improve the violence that we're seeing, that is something I'm going to defer to, and that is something that I'm going to support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Further, Councilmember Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'm on the Transportation and Environment Committee. We've had disagreements in the past about traffic enforcement or traffic violence in general, but one of the things I'm struggling with is the source of this funding. It's not about whether or not we should build a rec center, but I went back and pulled one of the speed camera site assessments that we have on Alabama Road, which, as Councilmember Allen mentioned, is one of the more dangerous corridors that we have in the district. And just to sort of put some numbers to this, between 2018 and 2021 in July, there were 113 police reported crashes, 25% of which involved injuries. And so I guess my question, Councilmember White, is if we're completely zeroing out these projects for those, then what do we do about getting people to slow down so that folks aren't getting hit or property isn't being damaged or folks aren't losing their lives due to traffic violence at those intersections?
Thank you. And I want to answer that, Chairman. And so while here DDOT's proposed to remediate accidents and tragedies on the roads, and I think that's important. What I'm concerned about and misled about is some of the things that DDOT has already done, because they're saying this project costs $20 million, and the other one is about $20 million as well. I've been following these processes for the last almost 7 years, and some of the construction projects that they're proposing are done. And so, in going to the Ward 8 meetings with DDOT, I just did a walk with DDOT and 5 of his staff members 2 months ago on Wheeler Road and Alabama Avenue. So I'm not sure if, and what I've seen done is this money is in the budget to do this, and then 2 years later, that money is shifted somewhere else and it never gets done. And so I know there has been a priority since we have had deaths on these roads, and from my information, those projects, at least 70% has been complete on Alabama and Wheeler Road. And so I tried to prove that already with showing what was there before with the Google picture I presented in Exhibit 1, and then I showed what was in Exhibit 3, the major construction that happened already on Wheeler Road, and I haven't got the pictures from Alabama Avenue, but I can get those as well to show you that some of those traffic calming measures, as they call it, have already been done. So I'm not sure what else they're going to complete with that money. I'm pretty sure they can make up a plan, but to me, it seems like our development community is getting richer while our streets are still not safer. I'm talking about the massive amount of potholes that are there in our other corridors. Let me just say this. agencies, community members, council members have demanded so many things from DDOT, and we don't get those things. Yet we get a budget of $20 million up to $155 million of things that get done that doesn't even address what the community said they wanted or needed for those intersections. And so I'm not in favor of what DDOT is proposing. I know what they've done already. Some things I do support, some things I don't. But I don't think we need $155 million for that if 70% of the work has already been done.
Further?
Yeah, I would just say, I understand and recognize that there have been delays and starts and fits in terms of the Alabama Avenue and Wheeler Road. And I brought that up to the director because these projects continue to get pushed back and people keep dying, which is why that's where my uneasiness comes from in terms of if we completely zero out these projects, that nothing will happen.
So work has been done. I'm not sure which is,
There's a little bit too much dialogue going on here. So Councilmember Henderson, if you would finish with your time.
I'm done. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And then I'll recognize Councilmember Fruman.
Thank you very much. I mean, I join in being concerned about traffic violence, but also wanting to be deferential to the Ward 8 council member about violence and the need to have maximal resources for kids where they can feel safe. I'm intrigued by Councilmember McDuffie's suggestion about having planning dollars in the budget and using the year to find the dollars to deliver on the kinds of things that Councilmember White is suggesting, because he is way closer to this issue than I, and if he thinks these things are important, I think they're important. I just don't want to do it at the expense of something else that is also important. And so I for one, thought Councilmember McDuffie's suggestion was interesting.
I want to respond to that. Thank you, Councilmember Fruman. But the reality is, as a council member, we've always have to make decisions about what's important versus what's important. That's in the $19.7 billion budget. Every time we shift money coming from the mayor, we take money from somewhere to put it somewhere else. And it's always a notion that we don't have money to do this, or we can't do that. And I say that some say we can't afford to do it. I say we cannot afford to do it, right? And our lives are in danger. We have a number of organizations who have nowhere to go to do constructive programming with our kids because in Ward 8, we've closed down over 9 recreation centers in a ward that has the most children out of anywhere in Washington, D.C. And I go to the funerals, I go to the visuals, and I go to the crime scenes. You know what people say? I don't have nowhere safe to send my child. Each and every day. And this is our only opportunity that we have at this moment to fix it. And we can talk about what we can do later on down the road, but we got to talk about what we can do now. Because I've been here for 7 years, and we're still talking.
Further, Councilmember Fruman? So let me say this. You know, the argument that you make regarding violence, nobody can take that away from you. And the argument that you make about the need for recreational facilities, nobody can take that away from you. But this project has not been fully vetted. And so we could vote for it. And first of all, there will be adverse impacts in terms of transportation. But second of all, we don't really know that this is what will make the difference. The need, yes, but whether this will make the difference. So this is what I made reference earlier to Department of Parks and Recreation. This is what they wrote. DPR seeks to understand the recreation needs and service gaps this facility will support. I'll repeat, seeks to understand the needs and gaps this facility will support. Note the new Congress Heights Recreation Center will be a half a mile away, and the new Douglas Recreation Center will be 0.6 of a mile away. So let me just make this point. If the executive is not on board, this project will not happen. We've seen that over and over again. I'll remind members, the Exxon station. I'll remind members, the baby bonds. What else can I mention? The public restrooms. We put money in all the time. And if the executive doesn't support it, we can't make them spend the money. That is the separation of powers. We can budget, we can't make them spend the money. So we put this money in. And again, We don't know what the transportation impact is, which several people have spoken to. Second of all, we don't know really whether this is the right amount, but it's pretty clear that DPR is politely saying, no, not right now. And the executive has to support this before it will get built. So if we want to cut a transportation department, cut a transportation project, arguably a safe streets project, if we want to cut that and park the money for a year where nothing will happen, we can do that. But that's likely what the outcome will be of this. Now, I haven't recognized you yet. I don't believe anybody else wants to speak. You will be the last word, and then we'll have a vote.
Thank you, Chairman. I think what you said was two different things, because when you first spoke, you said DPR is not in favor of building no more recreation centers in D.C. I didn't hear that in that email. And then you said that we don't know if DPR is going to build this recreation center. Is in favor of this if they're opposed to it. That does not say that. That just gave some clarity on how close this rec was in relation to other recreation centers. Now, if you can go back through that email and tell me where they say they did not support it, then I can get some clarity on what you're saying, because you're building an argument based on some buzzwords in that email. And I have another email that counters that. And I spoke to the director, the interim director, Thaney Freeman, yesterday.
Actually, Councilmember, I didn't say that DPR doesn't support any more recreation centers. What I said
You absolutely
was
said that.
DPR doesn't
on record,
support.
on camera. You absolutely said that.
Mr. Chairman.
Councilmember White, were you done?
Are you done?
I'm trying to be respectful here. I don't know if you were done with your time.
Chairman, I'm just giving clarity to what you said on camera, on record, that you said that DPR is not in favor of building any more recreation centers in Washington, D.C. You said that, and you said you didn't say it.
Councilmember, as a matter of personal privilege, that is not correct what I said, and members can judge for themselves. If there's no further discussion, we have this amendment before us. All those in favor of the
Roll
amendment?
call, Chairman.
Madam Secretary, will you call the roll?
Councilmember Gray. Councilmember Gray.
Go right ahead, Madam Chairman.
It's a roll call on Councilmember Trayon White's amendment number 5.
Yes.
Councilmember Gray votes yes. Councilmember Henderson.
No.
Councilmember Henderson votes no. Councilmember Lewis George.
Yes.
Councilmember Lewis George votes yes. Councilmember McDuffie.
Yes.
Councilmember McDuffie votes yes. Chairman Mendelson.
No.
Chairman Mendelson votes no. Councilmember Nadeau.
Present.
Councilmember Nadeau will be recorded as present. Councilmember Parker.
Yes.
Councilmember Parker votes yes. Councilmember Pinto.
Yes.
Councilmember Pinto votes yes. Councilmember Robert White.
Yes.
Councilmember Robert White votes yes. Councilmember Trayon White.
Yes.
Councilmember Trayon White votes yes. Councilmember Allen.
No.
Councilmember Allen votes no. Councilmember Bonds.
Yes.
Councilmember Bonds votes yes. Councilmember Fruman.
Yes.
Councilmember Fruman votes yes. Mr. Chairman, there are 9 yeses, 3 noes, and 1 present.
The amendment passes. Further, Councilmember White?
Chairman, point of clarity, I heard the Secretary mention one amendment. I thought we was voting on them in block. Is that not correct?
That's not correct.
Give me 1 second. I want to move amendment number 4, Chairman.
Let him do it. Councilmember, are you ready?
Chairman, there's been a mix-up in how these amendments are numbered. Trying to get clarity on which amendment is what. Give me 1 second, Chairman. Chairman, I have Fort Gravel as number 4.
Yeah, it's number 4.
Yeah, she said we already funded that one.
Just say whether.
Councilmember.
All right, so Chairman, I want to move the amendment for the amendment for Fort Gravel Sports Complex Capital Improvement.
Councilmember White, you circulated at noon today an amendment captioned Amendment Number 1, Fort Greble Sports Complex
There
and
it
the
is.
Capital Improvements Program. Is that the one you're moving?
Yes, Chairman, that's the one. It's out of order here because I have so many circulations, but yes, Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question? That was also circulated as amendment number 3 previously.
Yep.
So I just would like to make sure that I have the correct information.
This one, amendment.
See, this is what was circulated. This is the agenda.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. So, Chairman, it was circulated as a supplemental amendment for amendment number 1, but it's amendment number 3.
Is there any difference between this and what was circulated on May 24th?
No, Chairman.
Okay, so I'm working off of the document you circulated May 24th.
Number 3 is for the LDA.
Is this Fort Gravel?
For clarification purposes, Councilmember White, correct me if I'm wrong. What you circulated at noon today is identical to what you circulated on May 24th. And what you circulated at noon today has amendment number 1, which is to the FY23 revised budget, and has amendment number 3, which is for the FY24 budget. And so what you're moving now is amendment number 3 to the FY24 budget. Is that correct?
Yes, Chairman.
And that's
Part
a
of the
$10,200,000 move.
Yes, Chairman. Some of these budget items are budgeted in the out years, so I want to make sure that it's reflective of that. The only difference is that we took $10 million from the streetscape on Good Hope Road, and that's why it's in supplemental. We took $10 million from streetscapes to Good Hope Road. I'm sorry, Chairman. We reduced it by $10 million to send to Good Hope Road.
I didn't follow you. The amendment number 3 that I have in front of me proposes to add $10 million to Fort Greble in FY24, removing $10 million from Wheeler Road Multimodal Safety and Access Project.
I believe it was revised.
Correct.
Third time.
Mr. Chairman?
I do want to say that this is very hard on the members, that it's not clear what we have before us.
Yeah,
Mr. McDuff.
and I want to try to clarify. I'm reading a document titled Amendment 3 to the fiscal year 2024 Local Budget Act of 2023, dated May 30th, 2023, and it has a strike-through of the number 15. And it has not 10 million, but 10.2 million total?
It says 10.2.
Yeah, you said 10 million. I just want to make sure it was 10.2 and
It
not,
says 20.
that does say 20.
Yeah.
Why does mine say 20 and yours?
It was revised a third time, and it's 20.2.
I just need the document that we're all working from, if that would be helpful.
When was this circulated, Mr. White?
Mr.
Chairman?
So Chairman, let me do this. Can we come back to this, Chairman, so I can make sure everyone has the accurate document in front of them so that I can know what we're speaking to?
Yes.
Thank you.
Do you have anything else at this time?
Nothing further at the moment, Chairman.
I'm sorry, say that again?
Nothing further at the moment, Chairman.